If you're looking for your next best-selling print-on-demand product, then this video is for you. Customized blankets are making some sellers on Etsy huge amounts of money, and with Q4 right around the corner, there's no better time to start selling them yourself. Today, I'll show you some examples of shops on Etsy bringing in some pretty shocking revenues with this idea, then take you through a step-by-step tutorial on how to make your own version using Canva and Printify. Let's jump in. Okay, so here we are on Etsy, and I've just typed in custom blanket into the search bar. And as you can see just on the first page here, there are lots of popular now and bestseller badges, letting us know this is a very popular product right now. And a lot of them do seem to be geared towards children. So that's what we'll be focused on today. And I wanted to show you a couple of examples in particular. Starting with this one. This is a bestseller and is in 20+ baskets right now. Quite a simple design with just the child's name in a simple pattern in a white font. And it looks like they're offering a few different color options for the blanket itself, and because of that they've included this blanket color chart in their listing so the customer can choose whichever background they want for the blanket. And then it looks like they're only offering white in terms of a choice for the color of the font. And they've also included a blanket size chart, which gives the customer a good sense of the different sizes in reference to, it looks like maybe a queen size bed here. So they're offering 4 different sizes for this blanket. They're also offering a bunch of different font options. And I think if you're doing that, you can just take the simple route and offer only one font. But if you do want to offer multiple font options, it's a really good idea to include something like this, font details listing photos, where it shows the entire alphabet printed out in uppercase and lowercase, because sometimes certain letters don't look or read as well as other ones, and so the customer can get a really good sense of how the particular name they're wanting to put on the blanket will actually look with each font. So I think that's a really smart idea to include images of the full alphabet of each font that you're wanting to include. And again, this is in 20+ baskets right now. If we look at our EverBee stats, this is a very new listing. It's only been up for 2 months, so it's only had 7 sales so far and is bringing in a monthly revenue of about $157. But because it's a bestseller and is already in 20+ baskets, that lets us know this is on the way to becoming a good source of revenue for this seller. Next, we have this example, another bestseller. This is very much in demand right now. 50 people have bought this in the last 24 hours. And let's have a look at some of their listing photos here. A really cute image of a baby in situ here. And this particular seller has decided to only offer one font, which I think might be a good way to go if you're just getting into customized products, to keep it simple for yourself. This is a very nice font, and again, it shows what each letter looks like in upper and lowercase here, and then gives directions to the customer of how to personalize it in terms of what they need to type into the personalization box over here. For instance, if they want the first letter of the name to be uppercase, or maybe they want it lowercase for that aesthetic, to make sure that the customer is typing that in exactly as they want it. And let's have a look at some of the other listing photos. Really high quality mock-ups here. And I like how they have different types of situations where it's hanging over the edge of a crib. There is one where there's actual people in the image. There's someone holding up the blanket so they can see the entire pattern. So they've been really smart about what types of photos they're including. Let's have a look at our EverBee stats on this one. This is another very new listing. It's only been up for 3 months and has already sold 1,980 times with a monthly revenue of over $18,000. Wow. And monthly sales of over 1,200 as well. So for a 3-month-old listing, this is really skyrocketing for this seller, letting you know, again, this is very much an in-demand product. Next, we have another bestseller here. This is in demand. 14 people have bought this in the last 24 hours. Quite a simple design here with just the child's name with one design element, in this case, a little heart here. And they also are offering a multitude of colors for the actual blanket. They've included a size chart. They're offering different fonts here and a few different mock-up photos showing the blanket in different scenarios. And it looks like this photo is actually a real baby with a real blanket, which if you want to order samples of your blanket and create your own photos, that might be a good way to go to really show what the product will actually look like. Let's have a look at our EverBee stats here. This has been up for exactly 2 years and it's had over 30,000 sales with a monthly revenue of $8,712 with 396 sales happening per month. Then we have this one. It's in demand right now. 8 people have bought this in the last 24 hours. Another bestseller. And I like how their front listing photo is an actual image of real children with the real product. So again, if you want to take that step of actually ordering samples and doing your own photo shoot, I think for this type of product that works really, really well. And again, they're offering this in lots of different color options for the blanket itself, as well as a multitude of font options. So again, that's up to you if you want to create a lot of options or keep it really simple with just one font. If we look at our EverBee stats here, this has been up for 34 months, has had over 17,000 sales so far, and a monthly revenue of $3,705 with monthly sales sitting at 194. And lastly, we have this example. This is an Etsy's pick. It is in demand right now, and it sure is. 85 people have bought this in the last 24 hours. That is crazy. And again, they're offering multiple color options and then a few font options as well. And our EverBee stats are telling us this has been up for just over 2 years at 25 months, has sold 58,752 times with a monthly revenue of, get this, over $41,000. Wow, with 1,546 sales per month. So as you can see, this is a very, very popular product on Etsy right now. Let's head over to Printify next, where I'll show you the exact product these sellers are likely using, and then to Canva, where I'll show you how to make your own version of this design. Here we are in Printify in their blankets catalog, and as you can see, there's lots of different blanket types to choose from, so it's worth having a scroll through and seeing which ones appeal to you. The ones I see most sellers using on Etsy are these ones, the Minky blanket, and then also this one here up at the top, which is the Velveteen plush blanket. It's a bestseller, I think in part because it has a nice low price point, and I myself have used this one in my own shop. So let's choose that one for today's tutorial, and let's hit start designing. So this does come at a few different sizes. If we come over here to select variants, we can see it comes at 30 by 40 inches, 50 by 60, or 60 by 80. And you could offer all 3 sizes to your customer. If you want to keep it simple and just offer one, I recommend the 50 by 60, which is a nice kind of medium size. Here we can also see the important product information. You can access this by hitting this little eye icon up at the top here, and it just lets you know the production cost and the print area size. So if you're creating a document, you know how large it has to be. And I also do recommend looking at the product and design guidelines here. If you click here, it'll bring you to another page. But essentially, one thing they want you to keep in mind for this type of product and all over print product, which this is sometimes highly saturated colors like black and pretty much any color really is going to be a little bit desaturated because of the white background of the product showing through. So that's something to keep in mind. For instance, if you have a black font, it's probably going to print at something more like a dark gray rather than a full-on black color. So now that we have an idea of the product that we're working with, let's head over to Canva and start working on our design. Okay, so here we are in Canva, and the first thing we're going to do is create a custom sized document, and I've made mine at 4,500 by 2,000 pixels, which is probably a little bit larger than it needs to be, but the point is we want a nice long rectangular shape for our document. So I'm going to hit create a new design. And as you can see here, we've got that nice long rectangular shape, which is what we're after here. And I'm going to add some text. So I'll come over to the text menu and add a title. And then I'm going to size that up. And we're going to use the name Kendra for our example today. and I'm wanting to change that text to be a script font, and I found this one I liked earlier. It's called Playlist Script, so I'm going to hit that, and that's looking pretty cute. And I'm going to size that up a bit more here. We do want to leave some space at the top and the bottom. We don't want our text taking up this whole rectangular space. And then we also want to leave some room at the side here for a design element I'm going to put in. So I'm just going to size that down a little bit more, maybe just sort of reaching just past the halfway point. And then we also want a little bit of space at the sides here. I might move that over just a little bit. In fact, we'll use that nice bounding box that Canva supplies here maybe as our guidelines. And next I'm going to add a design element to the side here. So I'm going to come up here to elements, click on that, and I found this nice kind of hand-drawn looking heart here. So I'm going to use that. And I want to have it be sort of a similar size to our text here. So I'm kind of lining that up with the top of the K here, and then I'm going to drag that out to the bottom of the K so it's kind of a similar height, and then I'm going to place that. Again, we'll use our bounding box here as a guideline, so we want it centered nicely with that text, and then just a little bit of distance between the name and the design element. So I'm pretty happy with that. I also want to create a white version of this, so I'm going to come up here and hit duplicate page, and it's just duplicated everything. So I'm going to click on the name here, and then I'm going to come up to the text color option, and I'm going to create an off-white color. One that I like to use a lot is FEFEFD, and that creates just a slightly yellow or cream colored white, so it's not just a perfect white, just something I like to do for my designs. And then I also want to change the color of the heart to that same color, so we'll come over here and we'll click on that. And there we have now a black version and a white version of our design. And what I'm going to do next is export this. So we'll come up, actually we'll name it first. Let's call this custom blanket. So now we'll download that by coming up here to the share button, hitting download, and then I'm just going to export the black version for now. So we'll choose that, we'll click done. We want to choose a transparent background, so make sure you click that, and then we'll hit download. Now we'll head back over to Printify for the next part of the process. We're back in the Printify design interface for our blanket, and the first thing we'll do is we'll drag in that design we just made from our downloads folder. There it is, and then I'll just size that down a little bit and drag it to the middle. And then we'll come over here to the menu on the right, and you'll see an option to create pattern. So we're going to toggle that on, and as you can see, Printify has created a grid pattern based on the design we just uploaded, which is super cool. And you can choose between just a straight grid pattern, you can choose a horizontal brick pattern, or a vertical brick pattern. I think for today's purposes we'll choose the horizontal brick, and what that does is essentially staggers the design so they're not stacked on top of each other, and I just think that aesthetic works well for this particular design. Then what we can do is size up or down our original image here to create a smaller or larger pattern. And we can also drag it around to center it the way we like it. I think I'm going to maybe even size that down a little bit more, something like that. I think that looks pretty good. And then we can also select our variants from here. If you wanted to offer this in a few different sizes, come over to select variants, and then you can see how the pattern looks on the different dimensions. This is the 30 by 40, and there's the 60 by 80. So it looks a little bit different depending on the size of blanket. Then what I like to do at this point is come up here to the preview button and click on that. And that allows you to see a mock-up view of the blanket, so you can see how it actually looks once it's printed. And here is a straight front view. And then you can also look at context views. So we're looking at the 60 by 80 size right now. So we'll click on context 1 to see how it looks on a bed. It just gives you a better sense of the size of the pattern once you see it placed in a room like this, and I think that's looking pretty good. Let's have a look at the 30 by 40 option as well in context. And I think that's working really nicely at that size as well. And lastly, the 50 by 60 checks out too. I think that looks really good. So now that you have a good sense of how Printify can help you make patterns for your blanket, I want to show you how you can create colored backgrounds. You can choose from the available background color options here in Printify, but as you can see, it's a pretty limited range of colors. And you could keep it really simple for yourself and just choose one of these, something like that, but I think these colors aren't super attractive in terms of what customers are looking for. So let's go back to Canva now and I'll show you how to create custom colors for our backgrounds. So when we were looking at our Etsy examples of bestsellers, a lot of them had a blanket color chart included in their listing photos where they could show their customers all of the different options for the background colors for the blankets. So that's what we're going to do right now. This is going to be one of our listing photos. So I've created a new document here at 2500 by 2000 pixels, and then up at the top here I've just written out blanket color chart. Then we're going to come over to elements and we're going to go into our shapes menu and just choose the circle. There we go. And let's imagine that we're only offering 6 color options. You can offer a lot more than that, but for the sake of this tutorial, let's keep it simple and just do 6. So I'm going to duplicate this circle by hitting Command C and Command V, and then placing that next to that, and then I'll select both, hit Command C and Command V to make a copy of both of them, and drag that down, and then hit Command V again to create another copy. And there we go, we've got our 6 circles. I'm going to center that. Perfect. And then what we'll do is we'll click on each one. So I'm going to click on this first one here. I'm going to come up to color. I'm going to come up to add new color. And then I'm just going to play around and find a color that I think would be a nice option to offer my customers for the background of the blanket. I think something like that is quite attractive, kind of a dusty rose. Then for this one, I'll do the same. I'll come over here. This one I maybe want more of like a minty green. And I think what we're going to do is offer only white text in one font as our option. We're going to keep it simple. So we want to choose colors where we know the white font is going to show up nicely on. So that first mint I chose was probably a bit too light, whereas something like this green would work a lot better with white text. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to choose a few different color options that I know would look good with white text on it. Something like that is beautiful. Maybe we'll do more of a neutral kind of browny color, something like that. Let's do an orangey type color. Maybe something like that. And then maybe like a purpley color for the last one. And again, we want them to be dark enough where we know the white text is going to work well. So something like that looks great. And then I want you to make this listing photo a lot more attractive than I've done here. Please add a background, add more text, whatever you can do to make this listing photo more attractive. Maybe go and look at some of the other examples on Etsy of the way they've created their color charts. But essentially what you would do next is you would come in and add some text and place it inside each of those circles and come up with a name. Like I think I called this one Dusty Rose, so let's write that in. And again, you would spend more time choosing the fonts, and then you could even change the spacing of the lines here so they're a little closer together. Make sure it's centered within that circle, and then you would want to change the text color to be white because you would want to reflect the actual color of the blanket that the customer will be getting, which would be white text on this colored background. And then you would do the same thing, like you could hit Command C and Command V and move that text over to the next one, and then you could call this one mint or something like that. And again, center it and go through and just name all of these colors. And then what we would do to get these colors into Printify is we would click on the color we want, come up here to color, and then click on that color. And that brings up the hex code here. So you would highlight that and then hit Command C, and that copies that hex code, and then we'll head back over to Printify and use that hex code to create our background color on our blanket. So to add that custom color to Printify, we'll just come over here to our background color menu, click on that, and at the bottom here is a space where we can actually paste our hex code. So I'll hit Command V to paste that in, and boom, there is our custom background color. Now I actually want to use our white version of our design, so I'm actually just going to delete this one and drag in the white version of our design, and just repeat that process of making that a bit smaller, and then coming over to our menu on the right, hitting create pattern and doing our horizontal brick. We're going to size this down a little bit and maybe move that around so it's nicely centered. So think something like that looks really nice. Boom, and there we have our white version of our design on our custom color background. Let's have a look at our preview. I think that looks quite nice. So now when a customer orders one of your custom color backgrounds on Etsy, you can go to your Canva listing photo document, and there you'll have access to all of those hex codes for those exact colors that you can then bring into Printify. Now what we'll do from here is we'll come down to Save Product and click on that. And then on this page, we'll want to come up with a title that is easy for us to find when a custom order comes through. Let's just call this Custom Name Blanket for the purpose of this tutorial. And then you wouldn't be publishing directly here from Printify as you would with another type of product. Because this is custom, instead of hitting publish, we're going to save this as a draft. And then we'll go over to Etsy and create a listing from scratch there with all of our title, our description, our mockups, our customization options, etc. And then when an order comes through, it will get sent to Printify, but it will show up in a different area of our orders. So instead of being here under Printify orders, as your other orders will be, it will be in this other section called Other Orders. So you can click through there, and once the product has been uploaded from Etsy to Printify, you'll be able to see it here and click on it and then upload from there your customized version of the design for that particular customer. And I won't be covering that part of the process today, the part where you actually have to go into Etsy to create the custom listing, but there's tons of other videos here on YouTube about that, and I do plan on making a tutorial on that in the future. Let me know in the comments if that's something that interests you. What I do want to show you real quick is how to make a mock-up using this design. Now, because we didn't actually create this image, this whole pattern in and of itself, we don't have an image to download. There is a way to quickly do that here right in Printify though. So we'll go back to our preview menu, and we're looking at the front view mockup here. As you can see at the bottom, we have the option to download the mockup. So I'm going to do that, and we'll head over to Canva now, where I'll show you how we can place that design inside of a mockup. So we're back in the Canva document we created for our blanket color chart, because this is the document we're going to use for all of our listing photos for this product. So let's actually change the title here to be something like Custom Blanket Listing Photos, or something like that. You want to just label it something that you can easily find anytime someone orders this blanket. And below that first image, I've uploaded this mock-up. I just found this directly on Etsy. And what we'll do now is we'll upload the image we just downloaded from Printify of our blanket. And as you can see, it has a white background currently. So we'll just come up here and click on Background Remover to get rid of that. And for this particular mock-up, there's all types of different mock-ups you can buy on Etsy. You can buy Photoshop ones, PNG ones that you can use directly here on Canva. And the way this one is set up, all you have to do is size up your image of your blanket so that it covers the entirety of the blanket in the mock-up photo. So you don't want to see any white anywhere, but you want to keep it fairly true to size as well. So something like that looks good. And then you'll come over here to position and then to layers, and then you'll see that blanket layer on the top. You want to drag it down below the mock-up layer, and boom, just like that, it has placed your image as if it's on the blanket with all those kind of folds and stuff, looking really realistic. So that's a quick way you can actually use the Printify mock-up image easily to create your own mock-ups here on Canva. And I recommend buying a few different mock-ups from Etsy. Try not to use those Printify ones. You could maybe use one of the context ones to show how the blanket looks on a bed or something like that, but they're not the nicest looking mock-ups, so I definitely recommend hunting around on Etsy to find mock-ups that fit your vibe and your aesthetic. For something like this, I would even recommend finding some with children in it, or children's bedrooms, nurseries, that kind of thing, and use those for your mock-ups. So now what you can do is save this document to a Canva folder that you'll name something that makes it easy to find when a custom order comes in, and you'll also save the original Canva document with the name in it to that same folder. So when someone orders their custom blanket and they have a new name, you can just come in here and easily edit this original file and then export it with a transparent background to Printify, and then also upload your hex code for the custom color that the customer has chosen. So hopefully now you have a good understanding of how to create your own best-selling customizable blankets to sell on Etsy. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on trying your hand at this popular product, as well as any other ideas for future tutorials that you'd like to see. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.